I never expected my daughter-in-law's birthday dinner would end with my son breaking into my house at 3 in the morning. But there they were, Amanda screaming accusations about the restaurant bill I supposedly skipped out on, while Jack fumbled with the light switch. I sat quietly in my living room, surrounded by open files, bank statements, and police photos. When the lights finally came on, Jack saw everything spread across my coffee table. His face went pale as he screamed in shock at what I had discovered about his wife. My relationship with Amanda had been strained from the moment Jack introduced us 6 years ago. Back then, I was still adjusting to life as a widow after losing my husband of 35 years to cancer. Jack was my only child, and we'd always been close until Amanda came along. "Mom, I've met someone special," Jack had said over Sunday dinner at my house. His eyes sparkled in a way I hadn't seen since he was a boy opening Christmas presents. "Her name is Amanda Taylor. She's in pharmaceutical sales. You're going to love her." I wanted to love her. I truly did. For Jack's sake, I put on my warmest smile when they arrived for dinner the following weekend. Amanda was beautiful, with perfectly styled blonde hair and a dazzling white smile. She brought an expensive bottle of wine and complimented my home with practiced precision. "What a charming little place," she said, her eyes scanning my modest living room. "So cozy." Over the months that followed, I noticed how Amanda subtly criticized everything about me. My home, my clothes, even my career as a retired nursing supervisor. Each criticism was wrapped in a compliment, making it impossible to object without seeming overly sensitive. "That blouse is such a perfect choice for someone your age." Or, "It's impressive how you manage on your pension." Little digs that accumulated like paper cuts. When Jack announced their engagement after only 6 months of dating, I voiced gentle concerns about the rush. That night, Jack called me, his voice cold and distant. "Amanda's upset. She thinks you don't approve of her." "That's not true, Jack. I just think you should take more time to—" "Mom, I'm 34. I know what I'm doing." After the wedding, our Sunday dinners became monthly, then quarterly events. Jack always had excuses. Work was busy, Amanda had commitments, they were renovating their house. I watched my son drift away, pulled by Amanda's invisible strings. For her 35th birthday dinner, Amanda chose Bellini's, the most expensive restaurant in our city. Jack insisted I join them, saying it would mean a lot to Amanda. I spent weeks looking for the perfect gift, finally selecting a delicate silver bracelet with a small diamond charm, elegant and tasteful, costing me 3 months of careful saving. The dinner started pleasantly enough. Amanda wore a stunning red dress that probably cost more than my monthly pension. Jack looked handsome but tired, with new lines around his eyes I hadn't noticed before. When Amanda excused herself to the restroom, I asked Jack if everything was okay. "Fine, Mom. Business is a little slow, but we're managing." He wouldn't meet my eyes. I needed to use the restroom myself, so I followed a few minutes after Amanda. As I approached the elegant bathroom with its marble countertops and fresh flowers, I heard Amanda's voice from inside. "Can you believe what Cynthia gave me?" "A bracelet my grandmother would wear." She laughed sharply. "I'll return it tomorrow for store credit." Another woman's voice responded. "At least she tried." "Whatever. Jack feels guilty enough that he'll buy me something better. He always does." I froze, my hand on the bathroom door. The casual cruelty in her voice pierced me deeply. I'd spent months saving for that bracelet, choosing something I thought would suit her sophisticated style. When I returned to the table, the massive bill had arrived. Over $400 for just 3 people. Amanda was examining her nails, while Jack stared at the total with barely concealed panic. "I need some fresh air," I said quietly, leaving the bracelet box on the table beside Amanda's purse. Neither of them looked up as I walked away. My vision blurred with unshed tears. I didn't run out to avoid paying. I left because in that moment, I finally understood that no matter what I did, Amanda would never accept me. And worse, she was slowly turning my son against me. That was just the beginning of the night that would change everything. I didn't go straight home after leaving the restaurant. Instead, I drove to Atlantic Union Bank where I had a safety deposit box. Inside was $25,000 in cash. My life savings beyond my modest pension. I'd been saving it for Jack, sensing from our rare conversations that his business was struggling more than he admitted. The night manager recognized me from my frequent visits over the past year, as I'd gradually built up the cash reserve. "Evening, Mrs. Lawson. Bit late for a visit," he said with a kind smile. "Emergency family matter, Frank. I need access to my box." After retrieving the money, I drove home with the envelope securely in my purse, rehearsing what I would say to Jack. The cash wouldn't solve all his problems, but it might give him some breathing room to sort things out, maybe even stand up to Amanda's spending habits. When I pulled into my driveway around 9:30, something felt wrong immediately. My front door was slightly ajar. The porch light I always left on was dark. Heart pounding, I considered calling the police from my car, but worry for my elderly cat, Jasper, pushed me forward. "Jasper?" I called softly, pushing the door open wider. My living room was destroyed. Furniture overturned, drawers emptied onto the floor, picture frames smashed. In the kitchen, cabinet doors hung open, their contents scattered across the linoleum. I found Jasper hiding under my bed, terrified but unharmed. After calling the police, I sat in my car until they arrived, too shaken to remain in my violated home. Two officers, one middle-aged man named Officer Bryant and a younger woman, Officer Patel, took my statement and photographed the damage. "Anything valuable missing?" Officer Bryant asked. "Notepad ready." "I don't keep much of value here," I said. "Some jewelry, but nothing expensive. I'll have to check everything." "These types of break-ins are usually looking for cash or prescription medications," Officer Patel explained. "Do you have either in the house?" "Just my blood pressure medication," I answered, grateful I'd gone to the bank earlier instead of coming straight home with the cash. As Officer Patel documented the kitchen damage, she paused at a small object on the floor. "Is this yours?" She held up a diamond-shaped earring back. "No," I said, leaning closer. "I don't have any earrings like that." She bagged it as evidence, but something about it nagged at me. Hours later, after the police left and I'd straightened up enough to make the house livable, it hit me. I pulled out my phone and found the website for the jewelry store where I'd purchased Amanda's bracelet. The matching earrings had the same distinctive diamond shape. That couldn't be right. Amanda had been at the restaurant with us, unless, with trembling hands, I found the police card and called Officer Patel. "This may sound strange," I said after identifying myself, "but do you still have those photos you took at my house?" "Yes, ma'am. They're evidence. Is there any way I could see them? Particularly the close-up of that earring back." She hesitated but agreed to email me a few of the crime scene photos. When they arrived, I zoomed in on the kitchen floor image. There it was. Not just the earring back, but partially visible in the corner of the frame was something else. A bracelet. My stomach dropped as I recognized the silver chain and diamond charm. Amanda's birthday gift, which I'd left at the restaurant. But that was impossible. I'd left the bracelet on the table at Bellini's just hours earlier. How could it be in my ransacked kitchen? My phone rang, startling me. It was Diane Wilson, my best friend since nursing school and a retired police detective. "Cynthia? I just got your message. A break-in? Are you okay?" "Physically, yes," I said. "But Diane, something very strange is happening." I explained about the restaurant, Amanda's comments in the bathroom, and the bracelet. "Send me those photos," she said, her detective instincts kicking in. "And don't talk to Jack or Amanda until we figure out what's going on." After sending the photos, I made a pot of strong coffee and spread everything across my coffee table. The police report, the photos, bank statements showing my regular withdrawals to build up Jack's emergency fund, and a notepad to document this bizarre evening. I was still sitting there, connecting increasingly disturbing dots, when my front door burst open at 3 a.m. Amanda stormed in first, designer purse swinging wildly, followed by my son. When the bill came, "Your mom took off. Are we supposed to pay now?" Amanda yelled, her voice echoing through my small house. "Your mom's gone, so who's paying the bill now?" Jack fumbled for the light switch, his face twisted with a mixture of anger and embarrassment. Then the lights came on, illuminating the evidence spread before me. Jack's eyes widened as he took in the police report, the photos, and most damning of all, the image of his wife's bracelet at my crime scene. That's when he screamed, "Mom, what happened here?" Jack gasped, looking around at the remaining disorder from the break-in. His anger had instantly transformed to concern. Amanda stood frozen in the doorway, her eyes locked on the crime scene photos. "I was robbed earlier tonight," I said calmly. "Right around the time I was supposed to be at the restaurant with you two." Jack moved toward me, but Amanda grabbed his arm. "We came here because you embarrassed us," she said, her voice suddenly controlled. "You walked out on a $470 dinner without paying your share." "I left because I overheard you in the bathroom, Amanda," I replied, watching her face carefully, planning to return my gift for store credit. Her cheeks flushed briefly before she regained her composure. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Jack," I said, turning to my son, "there's something you need to see." I handed him the close-up photo showing the bracelet in my kitchen. "I don't understand," he said, squinting at the image. "Isn't this the bracelet you gave Amanda tonight? How is it here?" Amanda snatched the photo from his hands. "This doesn't prove anything. It's just a blurry picture of some jewelry." "The police have the actual bracelet in evidence," I lied, watching her reaction closely, "along with fingerprints from my kitchen." Something dangerous flashed in Amanda's eyes before she laughed dismissively. "This is ridiculous. Jack, your mother is clearly confused. Let's go home." "Actually," I said, "I think you should both leave. It's late, and I've had a traumatic evening. The police said they might need to ask more questions tomorrow." After they left, Amanda practically dragging a confused Jack, I called Diane immediately. "They were just here," I said. Amanda nearly lost it when she saw the photos. "I've been looking at what you sent me," Diane replied. "Cynthia, this wasn't a random break-in. The timing is too coincidental. I'm coming over tomorrow to install some security cameras. Don't confront Amanda again until we have more information." The next morning, Diane arrived with small, discreet cameras that we placed throughout my house. "These will upload footage directly to a secure cloud account," she explained. "No one will be able to tamper with the evidence." "Evidence of what exactly?" I asked. "We don't even know what's happening here." Diane's expression was grave. "I have a hunch, but I don't want to bias your perspective. Just be careful, especially around Amanda. I've seen cases where people aren't what they seem." After setting up the security system, Diane mentioned she had to leave town for a few days for a medical procedure she'd scheduled months ago. "I hate to go now, with all this happening," she said. "Go," I insisted. "I'll be fine. The cameras are in place, and I'll call the police if anything else happens." Alone again, I decided to thoroughly check what might have been stolen during the break-in. In my home office, file folders had been dumped across the floor, but strangely, nothing seemed missing. As I reorganized the papers, I noticed something that didn't belong: a thin manila envelope tucked between my tax returns. Inside were financial documents I'd never seen before, with Taylor Pharmaceuticals investment printed at the top. Taylor, Amanda's maiden name. The documents detailed wire transfers from Jack's business account to various offshore accounts over the past 3 years, totaling nearly $2 million. My hands shook as I read through the papers. Jack's small construction company couldn't possibly generate that kind of money. Something was terribly wrong. Deeper in the envelope, I found more disturbing items: a lease agreement for an apartment in Phoenix, Arizona, under the name Amanda Wells, and birth certificates for 2 children, a 4-year-old boy and a 2-year-old girl, listing Amanda Taylor as their mother. But the father wasn't Jack. It was someone named Gerald Wells. I felt physically ill. Amanda had another family. She'd been systematically draining Jack's business accounts, laundering money through fraudulent pharmaceutical investments. The break-in at my house hadn't been random. She'd been looking for financial documents, perhaps worried that Jack had confided in me about money troubles. As I struggled to process this shocking information, My house phone rang. Few people had that number anymore. I mainly kept it as an emergency line. "Mrs. Lawson?" a professional voice asked. "This is Mercy General Hospital. Your son, Jack Lawson, has been admitted to our emergency department. He's been severely injured in what appears to be an assault." My world tilted sideways. Is he? Will he be okay? He's in critical condition. The doctor would like to speak with you when you arrive. I grabbed my purse and the damning envelope of documents, securing them in my trunk before racing to the hospital. Whatever game Amanda was playing had just turned deadly serious. The fluorescent lights of the hospital emergency department cast everyone in a sickly pallor, but Amanda looked surprisingly composed when I arrived. She sat in the waiting area, scrolling through her phone, not a hair out of place despite the late hour. "What happened?" I demanded, my heart pounding. Amanda looked up, her expression shifting to practiced concern. "Jack was attacked walking to his car after a late client meeting. They think it was a robbery attempt. Have the police been notified?" "Of course," she said, a flash of annoyance crossing her face. "I've handled everything. The doctor said he has a skull fracture and internal bleeding. They're prepping him for surgery now." A doctor approached before I could ask more questions. "Mrs. Lawson?" he asked, looking between us. "I'm his mother," I said, stepping forward. "I'm Dr. Ramirez. Your son has sustained significant trauma. The next 24 hours will be critical. We're taking him to surgery to relieve pressure on his brain and address internal bleeding. Can I see him before surgery?" I asked, my nursing background helping me maintain composure despite my terror. Dr. Ramirez nodded. Very briefly. "This way." Jack looked small and broken on the hospital gurney, his face swollen and discolored, a ventilator breathing for him. I gently touched his hand, careful not to disturb the IV lines. "I'm here, Jack," I whispered. "I love you. Fight." As they wheeled him towards surgery, Amanda excused herself to make some calls. The moment she was gone, a nurse touched my arm. "He regained consciousness briefly in the ambulance," she said quietly. "He was very agitated, kept saying, 'Not random, Amanda. She knows.'" My blood ran cold. "Did you tell his wife that?" "No," the nurse said. "Something about his tone made me hesitate. I documented it in his chart, though." I thanked her and found a quiet corner to call Diane's voicemail, keeping my voice low. "Jack's been attacked. He's in surgery at Mercy General. Before he lost consciousness, he implicated Amanda. The envelope I found has evidence of financial fraud and possibly a second family." "I'm scared, Diane." For the next several hours, I maintained a careful facade around Amanda, who alternated between tearful performances when hospital staff were present and cold detachment when we were alone. Dr. Ramirez eventually emerged from surgery, looking exhausted. He's stabilized, but remains critical. The next 48 hours are crucial. We've induced a medical coma to help his brain heal. "What are his chances?" I asked. "If he makes it through the next 2 days, his prognosis improves significantly. But he'll need specialized care during recovery, including cognitive and physical rehabilitation." "What about insurance?" Amanda interjected. "Will it cover everything?" Dr. Ramirez frowned slightly. "Most, but not all. The neurological specialist isn't in-network, and some rehabilitation services will have out-of-pocket costs." "How much?" I asked. "Potentially $40,000 to $50,000, depending on his recovery needs." Amanda's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. Calculation, not concern. "I have savings," I said. $25,000. I was saving it for Jack anyway." The change in Amanda was immediate and startling. Her entire demeanor transformed from detached to intensely engaged. "You have that much in savings?" she asked, a new edge to her voice. "Why didn't Jack know about this?" "It was meant to be a surprise, to help with his business." "I'll handle all the financial arrangements," Amanda said firmly. "Where are you keeping this money?" Her eagerness confirmed my suspicions. She didn't know the money had been in my house during the break-in. She was desperate for cash. probably to flee once she'd finished draining Jack's accounts. "It's in my safety deposit box," I said. "I'll make arrangements tomorrow." Amanda's phone chimed with a text. She glanced at it, then quickly stood. "I need to check something. Stay with Jack." After she left, I slipped into Jack's ICU room. Against protocol, but 30 years as a nursing supervisor had its advantages. I knew how to blend in during shift changes. Jack lay still, machines breathing for him, monitoring his vital signs. I leaned close to his ear. "I know what's happening, Jack. I found the documents. I'm going to fix this, I promise. Just focus on healing." To my shock, his hand moved slightly, fingers twitching as if trying to respond. A single tear slid from his closed eye. When I returned to the waiting area, Amanda was speaking intently with a large man I'd never seen before. They stood in a far corner, but hospital acoustics carried fragments of their conversation. "Not what we agreed. Supposed to be subtle." Got spooked when he mentioned. They fell silent when they noticed me. The man quickly left, and Amanda approached with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Just a colleague dropping off some things," she said smoothly. "The doctor wants to discuss limiting visitors. I've explained that your presence might agitate Jack given your recent disagreements." "Disagreements?" I asked, genuinely confused. "Jack told me how you've been increasingly paranoid, accusing him of financial improprieties, even suggesting I'm somehow unfaithful." Her voice was gentle, but her eyes were hard. "The doctor agrees that stress could impede his recovery." I realized with horror what she was doing, systematically cutting me off from Jack, painting me as mentally unstable. And without Diane here to back me up or access to the evidence in my trunk, I had no immediate way to prove otherwise. "I think we both want what's best for Jack," I said carefully. "Why don't we discuss this with his doctor together?" "I already have his medical power of attorney," Amanda said, producing a document from her purse. "Jack signed it last year, giving me full decision-making authority." "I'm sorry, Cynthia, but I think it's best if you go home and rest. I'll call if there's any change." As security appeared at her subtle gesture, I understood I was being removed from the hospital. Amanda hadn't just been stealing from Jack. She'd been methodically isolating him, preparing for something far worse than financial fraud. And now, with him vulnerable and unable to speak, she was accelerating her plan. Walking to my car, I felt a cold determination replace my fear. In 35 years of nursing, I'd seen family dynamics at their worst: manipulation, coercion, abuse. Amanda had underestimated me, assuming I was just a helpless old woman. But she didn't know that before I was Jack's mother or even a nurse, I'd worked my way through college as a pharmacy assistant. I understood medications, dosages, and hospital protocols better than most doctors. And I knew exactly how to fight back. By morning, I had formulated a plan. First, I called the hospital's administrative office, identifying myself as Cynthia Lawson, former nursing supervisor at St. Elizabeth's. "I understand there's a note in my son's file limiting my visitation," I said calmly. "I'd like to speak with patient advocacy about this matter." The administrator connected me to Barbara Turner in patient advocacy, who listened carefully to my concerns. "Mrs. Lawson, while a medical power of attorney is significant, it doesn't automatically grant the right to restrict visitation from immediate family without clear evidence of harm. Let me review the situation." Within an hour, Barbara called back. "The restriction has been temporarily lifted pending review. However, I should warn you that your daughter-in-law is quite adamant that your presence is detrimental to your son." "Thank you, Barbara. That's all I need for now." My next call was to the police detective assigned to Jack's assault case, Detective Moore. "I have information relevant to my son's attack," I said, "including financial documents that may establish motive." "Mrs. Lawson, we're treating this as a random robbery attempt. Mrs. Lawson, your daughter-in-law, reported that your son's wallet and watch were taken." "Detective, my son regained consciousness briefly and specifically implicated his wife. This is documented in his medical record." There was a pause. "I'll look into it. In the meantime, secure any documents you believe are relevant." After hiding the financial documents in a new location, I called Diane's cell repeatedly, finally reaching her as she was about to go into surgery. "Cynthia, I'm literally being wheeled into the operating room," she said. "Jack was attacked. Amanda's trying to cut me off from him. I found evidence of fraud, and possibly a second family. I need your help. My gallbladder removal will take 4 hours, then I'll be discharged tomorrow morning. Can you hold things together until then?" "I'll try. Be safe." With Diane temporarily unavailable, I needed to gather more evidence and secure my position at the hospital. I drove to a pharmacy, purchasing a small voice recorder that resembled a pen. One could clip to my pocket unnoticed. At the hospital, I presented myself at the nurse's station in ICU, my former professional demeanor firmly in place. "I'm Cynthia Lawson, Jack's mother. I understand there's been some confusion about visitation." The charge nurse, Linda, smiled with recognition. "Mrs. Lawson, I didn't realize this was your son. We worked together at St. Elizabeth's 10 years ago." This unexpected connection was exactly what I needed. Linda updated me on Jack's condition. Still critical but stable, with some positive responses to neurological tests. "His wife stepped out about an hour ago," Linda mentioned. "Said she had important business to attend to." I nodded, maintaining a neutral expression while internally celebrating this stroke of luck. "Linda, given my nursing background, would it be possible for me to volunteer some time here while Jack recovers? Being useful would help me cope, and you know how short-staffed ICUs always are." Linda brightened. "Actually, our patient companion program uses volunteers with medical backgrounds. You could read to Jack, help with basic comfort measures, and alert staff to any concerns. Let me speak with the volunteer coordinator." By that afternoon, I was officially a hospital volunteer assigned specifically to the ICU floor. This gave me legitimate access to Jack without raising Amanda's suspicions, plus hospital ID that allowed me to move freely through certain areas. Meanwhile, Diane was executing her part of our hastily assembled plan from her hospital bed. As a retired detective with active connections, she accessed surveillance footage from my neighborhood on the night of the break-in. She also ran background checks on Amanda Taylor, Gerald Wells, and the apartment lease in Phoenix. When Amanda returned to the hospital that evening, she was visibly startled to find me sitting beside Jack's bed in a volunteer's jacket, reading aloud from his favorite childhood book. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. "I left specific instructions. Patient advocacy reviewed your request," I said pleasantly. "They found insufficient grounds for a visitation restriction. Additionally, I've joined the hospital's volunteer program. My nursing background makes me particularly well-suited to assist with Jack's care." Amanda's face hardened. "You've always tried to interfere in our marriage. Even now, you can't respect my authority as his wife." "I respect your legal status," I said, activating the recorder in my pocket. "But I'm confused about some things, Amanda. Like why Jack's business was transferring large sums to offshore accounts connected to Taylor Pharmaceuticals." She flinched almost imperceptibly. "I don't know what you're talking about. Or why you maintain an apartment in Phoenix under the name Amanda Wells. Or why you have 2 children with Gerald Wells who aren't Jack's." Her composure cracked. "You've been spying on me? Going through my personal information? Actually, you left the documents during the break-in at my house. The one where you lost your bracelet. The one I gave you for your birthday." Amanda stepped closer, her voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. Jack signed everything over to me. His business, your grandparents' house, everything. Once he's gone, you'll have nothing." "Gone?" I repeated, the recorder capturing every word. "You expect him to die from these injuries?" A cold smile spread across her face. "Traumatic brain injuries are so unpredictable. Sometimes patients just never wake up." "Is that why you introduced yourself to the ICU staff as a pharmaceutical sales representative? To explain your interest in his medication protocols?" Something dangerous flashed in her eyes. "You need to leave. Now." "Or what? You'll arrange another robbery attempt? Like the man I saw you with yesterday in the waiting room?" Amanda's hand darted to her purse, emerging with a small knife. "You think you're so clever. But you're just a sad old woman who couldn't protect her son from me. I've been planning this for years while you baked cookies and knitted sweaters." "Actually," said a voice from the doorway, "she's been documenting your confession." We both turned to see Linda, the charge nurse, with hospital security and Detective Moore, who had been listening outside the door. Amanda lunged toward Jack's bed, knife raised, but I was faster, knocking over a medical cart to block her path and hitting the emergency call button. In the ensuing chaos, Amanda slashed wildly, catching my arm with the blade. The pain was intense, but adrenaline kept me focused on protecting Jack. Security tackled Amanda as additional staff responded to the emergency alarm. Detective Moore secured the knife, while medical staff attended to my bleeding arm. "You've ruined everything," Amanda spat as she was handcuffed. "No," I said, watching her being led away. "I saved my son." In the aftermath, I learned that Diane, despite being in recovery from her own surgery, had convinced Detective Moore to take my concerns seriously by sharing what we'd discovered about Amanda's financial fraud and double life. The detective had agreed to come to the hospital just as I was confronting Amanda. While receiving stitches for my arm, a doctor rushed in with unexpected news. "Mrs. Lawson, your son is showing signs of emerging from the coma. He's fighting the ventilator, trying to breathe on his own." As they removed the breathing tube, Jack's eyes fluttered open, finding mine immediately. "Mom," he whispered hoarsely. "You knew. You saved me." I held his hand gently. "Rest now. Everything's going to be okay." But we both knew the battle was far from over. Amanda's parents were wealthy and influential. They would hire the best defense attorneys money could buy. And Jack's recovery would be long and difficult. Yet for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt hope. My son was alive, and the truth was finally coming to light. The days following Amanda's arrest brought a whirlwind of developments. Jack's condition improved steadily, though doctors cautioned he faced months of rehabilitation. The physical injuries would heal faster than the psychological trauma of his wife's betrayal. Detective Moore kept me updated on the investigation. Police had arrested Amanda's accomplice, Ryan Dawson, a former security contractor with a record of violent offenses. Under interrogation, Dawson revealed the full scope of Amanda's plan. "She hired me to stage a robbery gone wrong," Detective Moore explained as we sat in the hospital cafeteria. "Dawson was supposed to make it look like Jack interrupted a burglary at his office and was killed in the struggle. But something went wrong," I said. "Dawson claims Jack recognized him from a previous meeting with Amanda. When Jack called him by name, Dawson panicked and fled after the assault, taking Jack's wallet and watch but leaving him alive." I shuddered, imagining how close we'd come to losing Jack forever. "We've frozen the offshore accounts," Moore continued. "Forensic accountants are tracking the money trail. So far, we've identified over $2 million diverted from Jack's business." "What about her other family? In Phoenix?" Moore nodded grimly. "Gerald Wells confirms they've been married for 6 years. He believed she was a traveling pharmaceutical executive who managed their investment portfolio. He had no idea she had another husband." 6 years, I repeated. "That means she was already married when she met Jack." "Bigamy is the least of her charges. We're looking at conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, aggravated assault, financial fraud, and identity theft." Despite this progress, Amanda's family quickly mobilized in her defense. The Taylors were old money with political connections. They hired Winston Chambers, the most expensive criminal defense attorney in the state. 3 days after her arrest, Chambers arranged a preliminary hearing where Amanda appeared perfectly poised in a conservative blue suit, her expression serene and victimized. The judge, a golfing partner of Amanda's father, set bail at $500,000, a sum the Taylors paid immediately. "She's out?" Diane exclaimed when I called with the news. Now recovered from her surgery, she'd been helping me navigate the legal system. "That's outrageous with the severity of these charges. Her attorney is spinning it as a misunderstanding between husband and wife, complicated by my interference," I explained bitterly. "They're suggesting Jack's financial problems drove him to self-harm, and I'm blaming Amanda because I've never accepted her. That's absurd. What about the evidence? The financial documents, the second family, Dawson's confession? Chambers is claiming the documents were planted, that Amanda has never heard of Gerald Wells, and that Dawson is lying to save himself. And the recording of her confession at the hospital? I sighed heavily. Chambers argues it was obtained illegally and without her knowledge. He's filed a motion to suppress it. The legal battle threatened to become a protracted nightmare that could drag on for years. Meanwhile, Jack faced the daunting challenge of rebuilding his health, his business, and his life. 1 week after the arrest, I was helping Jack with his physical therapy exercises when Winston Chambers unexpectedly appeared at the hospital room door. "Mrs. Lawson, Mr. Lawson," he said smoothly. "I hope I'm not interrupting." "What do you want?" Jack asked, his voice still weak but edged with anger. "To present an offer." Chambers placed his leather briefcase on the bedside table. "My client is willing to consider a settlement that would benefit everyone." "Your client tried to kill my son," I said flatly. "Allegations without substantiated evidence," Chambers replied. "But regardless, the Taylors recognize this situation has become uncomfortable. They propose dropping all counter-accusations against you, Mrs. Lawson, in exchange for Jack signing a simple divorce agreement." "Counter-accusations?" Jack asked, looking bewildered. "Amanda has shared concerning accounts of your mother's increasingly erratic behavior, including financial paranoia and persecution delusions. Her parents are worried about her safety given Mrs. Lawson's episode with the knife at the hospital." "That's not what happened," I protested. Chambers continued, as if I hadn't spoken. "The agreement includes a generous financial settlement for Jack, $200,000, to help with medical expenses and business reconstruction." $200,000? Jack's voice strengthened with indignation. "She stole millions from me and nearly killed me. And now her family thinks they can buy their way out of this? The alternative," Chambers said, his tone hardening slightly, "is years of costly litigation, where private matters become public record. Amanda's family has resources to sustain such a battle. Do you?" The threat was clear. They would drag Jack's name through the mud, paint me as unstable, and use their wealth and connections to avoid justice. After Chambers left, Jack grabbed my hand with surprising strength. "We're not taking their deal. I don't care how long it takes. Amanda doesn't get to walk away from this." I squeezed his hand gently. "We'll find a way." That evening, Diane arrived with unexpected news. "I've been doing some digging into the Taylors' finances. They're not as solid as they appear. Most of their assets are leveraged, and they've been using Amanda's pharmaceutical investments to maintain their lifestyle." "They didn't know what she was doing?" I asked. "Oh, they knew she was bringing in money. They just didn't ask questions about the source." Diane smiled tightly. "And here's where it gets interesting. The company Jack's money was funneled through? Taylor Pharmaceuticals investment? It doesn't exist as a legitimate entity. It's a shell company that transfers money directly to the Taylors' personal accounts. So they're complicit," Jack said. "Potentially," Diane agreed. "But there's more. Remember how Amanda maintained 2 separate lives? Turns out Gerald Wells isn't just any guy. He's the financial controller for Meridian Insurance Group, the company that holds Jack's business insurance policies." I realized, the pieces falling into place. Exactly. Amanda didn't choose him randomly. She specifically targeted someone with access to insurance information. That's how she knew exactly how much coverage Jack had for various contingencies, including accidental death, Jack said quietly. $2 million, Diane confirmed, paid directly to the spouse. With this new information, we approached Assistant District Attorney Sarah Washington, who had been assigned to the case. "This changes the calculation," Washington said after reviewing what we'd found. "If we can prove the Taylors were knowingly accepting fraudulently obtained funds, we can bring charges against them as well. That might be enough leverage to flip Amanda against her parents." "Or vice versa," I suggested. Washington nodded thoughtfully. "Family loyalty only extends so far when prison time is on the table." She was right. When confronted with evidence of their financial entanglement with Amanda's schemes, the Taylors' united front crumbled spectacularly. Amanda's father, Theodore Taylor, quickly negotiated a cooperation agreement, providing detailed records of every transaction in exchange for immunity. The final blow came from an unexpected direction. Gerald Wells, upon learning the full truth about Amanda, provided access to recordings of their conversations where she explicitly discussed her plans regarding Jack's insurance policy. "I can't believe I was so blind," Wells told investigators. "She had me completely fooled. I thought we were building a life together, and all along she was plotting this." The mounting evidence left Amanda increasingly isolated. Even Winston Chambers recognized the case was becoming indefensible. 2 weeks after our rejection of the settlement offer, Amanda's parents withdrew their financial support for her defense. The night before Amanda's revised bail hearing, Jack and I sat in his hospital room, watching the sunset through the window. "I keep asking myself how I didn't see it," he said softly. "There were so many red flags." "She was skilled at manipulation," I replied. "And when we love someone, we want to believe the best about them." Jack looked at me, his eyes filled with regret. "I chose her over you. I let her drive us apart. That's in the past now. We have a second chance, and that's what matters." The next morning, with her expensive attorney withdrawn and her parents' support evaporated, Amanda appeared in court in a standard-issue jumpsuit rather than designer clothes. The judge revoked her bail, citing the expanded evidence and flight risk. As officers led her away, Amanda locked eyes with me briefly. In that moment, I saw not the confident manipulator who had nearly destroyed my family, but a cornered woman whose carefully constructed world had collapsed around her. I felt no satisfaction in her downfall, only relief that Jack was safe and healing, and that the truth had finally prevailed. The road ahead remained challenging. Jack's business was in ruins, his recovery would take months, and the legal proceedings would continue. But for the first time in years, we faced these challenges together, our bond as mother and son restored through the fire of adversity. Sometimes, I realized, we need to lose almost everything to rediscover what truly matters. 6 months later, I sat in a courtroom as Amanda's trial concluded. The prosecution had built an airtight case, combining financial records, witness testimony, and the damning recordings from both my hospital confrontation and Gerald Wells' conversations with her. Against all expectations, Theodore and Margaret Taylor had not only withdrawn their support from Amanda, but had provided key evidence against her. Their cooperation stemmed not from moral awakening but self-preservation. Faced with serious criminal charges themselves, they had chosen to save their own reputations. "The jury has reached a verdict," the court clerk announced. I reached for Jack's hand as we rose. His recovery had been remarkable. Physically, he had regained nearly all function, though occasional headaches and memory lapses remained as reminders of his ordeal. The emotional healing had been harder, but he was making progress with the help of therapy and our rebuilt relationship. On the charge of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, we find the defendant guilty. A collective exhale swept through the courtroom as the clerk continued reading guilty verdicts for attempted murder, aggravated assault, grand theft, money laundering, and fraud. Amanda stood motionless, her face a mask of controlled composure even as her future collapsed around her. Only when the judge announced her sentence, 35 years without possibility of parole for 20, did her facade crack slightly, her shoulders slumping forward in defeat. As we left the courthouse, reporters swarmed around us, shouting questions about justice and closure. Jack, who had become adept at handling media attention during the trial, answered briefly. "Today isn't about vengeance. It's about truth prevailing and our family healing. That's all we have to say." At home that evening, we celebrated quietly with Diane and a few close friends who had supported us throughout the ordeal. The modest gathering felt like a symbolic turning point, an acknowledgement that while the worst was behind us, we were still reclaiming our sense of normalcy. "I have an announcement," Jack said as we finished dinner. "Two, actually." We all turned expectantly. First, the insurance company has finally settled the fraud claim. After reviewing all the evidence, they've agreed to honor the business interruption policy and compensate for the stolen funds. That's wonderful, I said, knowing how this financial relief would help rebuild his construction company. Second, Jack continued, a slight blush coloring his cheeks. I've asked Sarah to join us tonight, but she's running late. She wanted to be here when I told everyone. Sarah? Diane asked with a knowing smile. The ICU nurse? Jack nodded. We've been seeing each other for about 2 months now. It's still new, but it's good. She's good. As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Jack hurried to answer it, returning with a petite woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. Unlike Amanda's calculated perfection, Sarah radiated genuine warmth. Sorry I'm late, she said. Emergency at the hospital ran long. Sarah's been incredible, Jack told us as she settled beside him. She understands what I've been through, and she doesn't try to rush my healing process. Plus, Sarah added with a gentle nudge to his shoulder, he makes me laugh, even when he's being stubborn about his physical therapy. Watching them together, the natural ease, the respectful affection, brought tears to my eyes. This was what Jack deserved. Someone who valued him for himself, not for what she could take from him. Later, as guests departed, I took a moment alone in the kitchen. So much had changed in these 6 months. Beyond Jack's recovery and Amanda's conviction, I had found a renewed purpose. The nightmare we'd endured had revealed an urgent need for better protection of vulnerable individuals from financial predators. Need help with those dishes? Jack asked, entering the kitchen. I was just thinking, I said, about the foundation. With part of the insurance settlement, we had established the Second Chance Foundation, providing resources and advocacy for victims of financial abuse and exploitation, particularly older adults, and those with disabilities. The website launches next week, Jack confirmed, and we've already received 15 applications for assistance. The press coverage from the trial has actually helped spread awareness. Something good from something terrible, I mused. Jack leaned against the counter. You know, when I was in the coma, I could hear you sometimes. Not every word, but enough to know you were fighting for me. That you never gave up. I never would, I said simply. I let Amanda come between us for years. I believed her lies about you because it was easier than admitting I'd made a mistake in marrying her. I placed my hand over his. We can't change the past, Jack, but we can learn from it. I have, he said firmly. I've learned that love doesn't isolate you from family or friends. It doesn't demand control or create debt. Real love expands your world, not shrinks it. His words captured exactly what I'd hoped he would understand from this painful journey. Not just about Amanda's betrayal, but about recognizing authentic relationships built on mutual respect and genuine care. As spring bloomed outside my kitchen window, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Not for the ordeal we'd endured, but for the wisdom and strength we'd gained through it. Jack was healing, building a promising new relationship with someone worthy of his trust. Our mother-son bond had been tested by fire and emerged stronger than before. Most importantly, we had transformed our personal tragedy into purpose by helping others avoid similar exploitation. The foundation would be our legacy, a testament to resilience and the power of truth to overcome deception. That night, as I prepared for bed, I thought about the moment in the hospital when I'd made the decision to fight back against Amanda's manipulation. I had refused to be dismissed as a helpless old woman, drawing instead on my professional knowledge and life experience to protect what mattered most. Sometimes the most important battles in life aren't the ones we choose, but the ones that choose us. And sometimes, standing up for truth isn't just about justice. It's about reclaiming our own power and dignity in the process. In confronting Amanda, I had also confronted my own fears about aging and relevance. I had proven to myself that wisdom, courage, and determination don't diminish with years. They grow stronger, like tree roots extending deeper into fertile soil. That was perhaps the greatest gift of this painful journey. The reminder that we are never too old to stand firm in our truth, to protect those we love, and to begin again with newfound clarity, about what truly matters. If you've connected with this story of betrayal, resilience, and justice, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to stand up against manipulation or deception to protect someone you love? What gave you the strength to fight back? Please like this video if Cynthia's journey resonated with you, and subscribe to hear more true stories of ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges. Share this with someone who might need a reminder of their own strength and worth. Thank you for listening. And remember, it's never too late to reclaim your power and stand firm in your truth.